I swear, if smugness were a currency, my wife could have funded the national debt. The day it all began, she was folding laundry in the kitchen, humming some soulless pop tune, when she looked at me, didn't even bother to pause, and said, "You're lucky I even let you touch me." The towel slipped from my hands, but I didn't flinch. That line didn't sting, it calcified. Imagine decades of covering her overdrafts, fixing her wrecks, literal and metaphorical, buying her a Range Rover she claimed was practical for work. And suddenly you realize all that sweat equity was just a down payment on contempt. She tossed her blouse into the dryer, humming like nothing happened, while her phone buzzed on the counter. A giggle, a new message. She had that voice she used lately when texting, soft, sweet, 20 again. I used to love that tone. Now it just smelled like lies. I didn't rage. I didn't accuse. I didn't even ask who was on the other end. Because men like me don't chase shadows, we build floodlights. So I went downstairs to my office, opened the drawer I hadn't touched in months, and pulled out the oak box I carved myself years ago. It was supposed to hold cufflinks. Instead, it held patience. Patience and clarity. Empty still, but not for long. I booted up my laptop. A folder blinked at me. June Justice. The name was corny, sure, but when you're about to dismantle someone's double life, branding matters. Inside, emails, receipts, screenshots, months' worth. Her training retreats at the Burstone Hotel. Dinner charges on nights she swore she was stuck in board meetings. Text threads synced from her phone to the family iPad, conveniently left unlocked. "I needed that last night winking face," she wrote to him once. Timestamp, 1:42 p.m. She told me she was at a board meeting. The he in question? A contractor I'd once hired to fix our deck. I'd handed the guy a beer in my backyard. Shook his hand like he was family. That was the night I realized she didn't just cheat. She recruited. Later, when she floated downstairs in her smug little robe, feigning affection, she tilted her head and said, "You didn't say good night." I smiled. "I figured you were tired of touching me." Her eyes blinked. Her smirk faltered. Then she brushed it off. "You're being dramatic." I nodded slowly. Men like me don't need second chances. We need evidence. And evidence I had. That night, while she snored upstairs, I sat under the warm pool of my desk lamp, printer humming, oak box open. One by one, I slid the receipts, screenshots, and lovesick emails inside. Quietly, carefully, like I was folding the flag after a funeral. She thought I was a placeholder. But placeholders don't argue. Placeholders don't beg. Placeholders execute. And this execution? Just getting started. The morning after I started filling that oak box, she waltzed into the kitchen like the queen of denial. Hair up, sipping her green smoothie, scrolling through her phone. "Morning," she chirped, like nothing in her life was rotting. "Morning," I echoed, flipping pancakes for myself. She hated pancakes, said they were fattening. That's why I made them. The smell alone annoyed her. She glanced at me. "You're in a mood." I smiled. "I slept great." She frowned. "Because liars always expect you to carry the weight of their guilt for them. When you don't, it unnerves them." Halfway through breakfast, her phone lit up. She snatched it up so fast you'd think it was a grenade. Her face shifted from smug to sweet in an instant. I caught a glimpse of the contact name. Mason. Not his real name. No. In her contacts, he was saved as Angela Work. But I'd already seen the iPad sync. I knew Mason's shirtless selfies, his clumsy emojis, the way he called her baby girl, like he was auditioning for a boy band reunion. She excused herself from the table, phone pressed to her ear, her laugh echoing down the hall. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Instead, I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a neatly folded manila envelope. Inside, copies of her credit card statements. Funny thing, when you're sneaking around, you get sloppy. She had charged hotel rooms to the joint account, then paid herself back from her own savings. Except she forgot I had access to every single account. That envelope was my second oak box. By lunch, I had already met with my lawyer. "Collect everything," he told me. "No confrontations. No shouting. You've already won. You just need to play it like you haven't." I nodded. Because I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a dramatic showdown. She wanted chaos. I was going to give her silence. Nothing is colder, nothing is crueler than calm execution. That night, she strutted in late, smelling like perfume I didn't buy. I was in the living room, laptop open, spreadsheets on the screen. Long day, I asked. I's never leaving the numbers. Exhausting, she said, flopping onto the couch, fake sighing like she'd been saving orphans all day instead of sneaking into a Marriott with Mason the deck guy. I closed the laptop, looked right at her. We should take a trip. She blinked. A trip? Yeah, I said casually. Somewhere nice. Ridge Hill, maybe? I hear the hotels are great. Her lips twitched. Just for a second. But it was enough. Sure, she said, recovering. Let's plan it. I smiled. Already did. What I didn't tell her was that the trip was scheduled for the exact weekend she'd already booked a getaway with Mason. Same hotel. Same reservation desk. Same king suite. The oak box wasn't full yet, but it was getting heavy. And when a box gets heavy, someone has to carry it. A week later, I set the bait. She thought she was slipping off for another work retreat. I smiled, kissed her on the cheek at the airport drop-off, and even carried her bag like a dutiful husband. Inside that bag, by the way, was a little something extra I'd tucked in the lining, a slim GPS tracker the size of a thumb drive. She never noticed. Of course she didn't. She was too busy texting Mason, her laugh so high and breathy you'd think she was auditioning for a teenage rom-com. As soon as she disappeared into security, I drove home, pulled up the app, and watched the little red dot bounce straight toward Ridge Hill. Right on schedule. I didn't storm after her. Didn't show up at the hotel bar ready to swing. No, that's what she would have expected. Instead, I put on a pot of coffee, pulled out the oak box, and started labeling folders. Trips, finance, witnesses, timing. She thought she was playing chess. I was laying mines. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my buddy Eric from work. Hey man, weird question. Didn't you say Vanessa was at a conference this weekend? Yeah, I said, voice calm, fingers already tightening on the mug handle. Why? Well, he hesitated. My wife saw her at the Ridge Hill Marriott, holding hands with some guy. Contractor, I think. Big beard. Looked cozy. I let a beat pass. Appreciate you telling me. Eric cleared his throat. You okay? I smiled into the silence. I've never been better. That night, I poured a drink and opened her synced messages again. There it was, time-stamped proof. Mason, best night yet. You make me forget everything. Vanessa, shoo, don't jinx it. He's so clueless. Face with tears of joy. Clueless. That was the word she chose. I stared at it for a long time. Not angry, not even sad, just calculating. She wanted me to be clueless. She needed me to be. That's why she still kissed my cheek on the way out. That's why she laughed extra loud around me, like overacting could cover the script. But what she didn't know, I had already spoken to my lawyer. The papers were prepped. Accounts were frozen. And Mason? Mason had a past. One I was more than happy to bring into the light when the timing was perfect. The oak box was nearly full now, and the heavier it got, the lighter I felt. When she came back from Ridge Hill, she floated into the house like she'd just returned from saving orphans in a flood. Luggage wheels clicking, sunglasses perched on her head, skin flushed from more than the training seminars. Oh, you wouldn't believe the lectures, she said, dropping her bag in the hallway. Exhausting. I didn't answer. I was sitting at the kitchen island with the Sunday paper unfolded in front of me, coffee cooling by my elbow. I looked up at her the way you'd look at a cat bringing a dead mouse to the doorstep, mild interest. No surprise. How was the hotel? I asked casually, flipping a page. She paused. Fine. What? Just wondering if the sheets smelled like lavender. I've heard they use that detergent. Her eyes flicked toward me, then away. I didn't notice. She started unpacking groceries from the bag she always bought on her way home, a little ritual to make it look like she was thinking of me while she was gone. Thing is, the receipt from that grocery store was already in my oak box, dated the day before she left. She had staged even her shopping. You know what's funny? I said, sipping my coffee. Eric mentioned he saw you at Ridge Hill. Her hands froze mid-unpack. Just for a second. Then she laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. Oh, yeah, his wife must have been at the hotel bar or something. I stopped in for a drink. With Mason? She whipped around, eyes narrowing. Excuse me. I met her stare evenly. The contractor. Big beard. Ring a bell. Her face softened into that condescending smile she always used when she thought I was out of my depth. Honey, I don't know what you think you know, but Mason was just there for another project. We ran into each other. Nothing more. I set the paper down slowly. Nothing more. She nodded firmly, arms crossed now, chin tilted high. That's right. Silence stretched between us. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock. She thought she'd won the round. That's the thing about liars. They measure victory in seconds, not in outcomes. I stood, walked over, kissed her forehead like nothing had happened, and said, "Glad you had fun." She blinked, confused, and I left the room. That night, when she was scrolling through Instagram beside me in bed, I texted a number labeled JH. My lawyer. The message was short: set Monday morning meeting. Bring folder Ridge Hill. The reply was immediate: confirmed. She never noticed. She was too busy liking Mason's latest photo of some half-finished patio, leaving 3 clapping emojis like a teenager cheering for a school crush. I turned over and pretended to sleep. Monday morning, I walked into my lawyer's office with the oak box under my arm. He was already waiting, sleeves rolled up, tie loose. The kind of man who smelled like ink and victory. "Morning," he said, gesturing to the chair. "What V you got for me?" I set the oak box down, opened it, and began laying the evidence across his desk like a surgeon prepping for an operation. Receipts, screenshots, location tags, copies of texts, even a GPS log from the tracker. He let out a low whistle. "You weren't kidding. This is airtight. She thinks I'm clueless." He smirked. "Good. That means she won't see it coming when we file. With this much, we can argue marital misconduct. It tilts division heavily in your favor. Property, accounts, custody if it comes to that." I leaned back in the chair, folding my hands. "I don't want custody. She can have the Range Rover. The house too, if she wants. I just want her standing in the wreckage knowing she built it herself." The lawyer studied me. "Revenge, then." "Not revenge," I corrected. "Closure. With a touch of flair." He chuckled. "Well, I'll say this. You're about the calmest client I've ever had in your situation." I shrugged. Precision takes patience. When I got home, she was on the phone in the living room. I caught just enough as I slipped off my shoes. "No, he has no idea. You worry too much. I told you, he's boring. He doesn't notice these things." She turned, saw me, and plastered on a smile. "Oh hey babe, just talking to Celeste from the office." I nodded, kissed her cheek, and went upstairs. I didn't bother correcting her. Later that evening, while she cooked her token, "I'm such a good wife," pasta dinner, I poured us both glasses of wine. She chattered about some open house she'd hosted, about how the clients adored her, about Pilates, about nonsense. When she lifted her glass, I clinked mine against it and said, "To us. May we always be transparent." She laughed, clinked back, and downed half her glass. She thought it was a toast. I knew it was a prophecy. 2 days later, I made my move. Not the big move, not yet. Just a test strike. I left my laptop open on the kitchen island. An email draft pulled up, addressed to Vanessa's brokerage team. The subject line read, "Question regarding employee conduct." The body was blank, but the attachments? Screenshots of her text with Mason, timestamped during hours she'd billed as client showings. I tucked the oak box back into the drawer, grabbed my keys, and left the house. It took her less than 20 minutes to call me. "Why the hell is your laptop open with an email to my office?" "Oh," I said innocently, merging onto the highway. "Must have been a mistake." "A mistake? With attachments?" Her voice was sharp, panicked now. "You know me," I said calmly. "Clueless." Silence on the line. "Then, if you send that, you'll ruin everything." I smiled. "Funny. That's exactly what I was thinking." I hung up before she could answer. That night, she was suddenly different. Hovering, affectionate, making my favorite dinner, slipping a hand onto my shoulder like we were newlyweds again. "You've been working so hard," she murmured. "I don't say it enough, but I appreciate you." I looked at her hand on my shoulder. The same hand that had typed placeholder to Mason. "Appreciate me, huh?" I said softly. "What for?" "For everything," she said, forcing a smile. I met her eyes, held them, then leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Good," I whispered. "Keep appreciating me. You'll need the practice." Her smile faltered. Just a flicker, but it was enough. She was starting to realize I wasn't the fool she thought. And the oak box? It wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a weapon. The following week, she was all honey smiles and nervous laughter, a woman playing the role of doting wife like she'd just gotten the script that morning. Suddenly, I was handsome again. Suddenly, my stories about work were fascinating. She even sat through an entire documentary with me on turbine engineering, of all things, nodding like she understood. It was adorable, really. Like watching a fox try to play dead after you've already closed the trap around its leg. Want another drink? She asked that night, hovering by the bar cart. Sure, I said. Scotch. Neat. She poured it carefully, hands just a little shaky. She'd been rattled since the accidental email draft I left open. She didn't know if I had actually sent it or not. And I didn't tell her. That's the beauty of silence. It multiplies in their head, louder than any accusation ever could. She set the glass down in front of me, and I caught her watching my face, scanning for clues. I raised the glass in a mock toast. To trust, I said. Her lips twitched. To us. I drank. She sipped, and the silence between us thickened like tar. The next day, I paid Mason a visit. He wasn't hard to find. Contractors never are. His truck was parked outside a half-finished deck in a suburban cul-de-sac, his toolbox open, country music leaking from the cab. He looked up as I approached. Oh, hey. Long time, no see. I smiled. Yeah, long time. He wiped his hands on his jeans, gave me that casual nod of a man who had no idea his head was already in the lion's mouth. What's up? Vanessa mentioned you might swing by sometime. Did she? I asked lightly. Yeah, he said, oblivious. She said you were cool with. He stopped. Too late. I let the pause stretch, then said, cool with what? His eyes darted. His throat worked. Nothing. Just, with us all being friendly. I smiled wider. Right? Friendly. Then I handed him a small white envelope. He frowned, opened it, and his face drained. Inside were printouts of his texts with Vanessa. Every emoji, every clumsy endearment, every timestamp during hours she was supposedly with clients. You went through her phone? He stammered. Not exactly, I said. I went through mine. Family iPad. Cloud sync. Amazing what people forget. He swallowed hard, shifting from foot to foot. Look, man, it's not what you think. Oh, Mason, I said softly, almost kindly. It's exactly what I think. But here's the good news. I don't care about you. He blinked. You don't. Nope, I said. You're not the target. You're just evidence. He looked at me like I'd spoken in code. And in a way, I had. Then I turned, walked back to my car, and left him standing there, envelope dangling from his fingers like a lit firework. That night, Vanessa was waiting for me in the living room, dressed like she thought she could reset the clock to our honeymoon phase. Candlelight, soft music, wine already poured. Surprise, she said brightly. I raised an eyebrow. What's the occasion? She hesitated, then forced a laugh. Do I need an occasion to spoil my husband? Yes, I said flatly. Her smile wavered. She pushed the wine toward me. Just drink. Relax. We've both been stressed. I took the glass, studied it. Then I set it down without sipping. Funny thing, I said. I ran into Mason today. Her face drained. She masked it quickly, but not quickly enough. Oh, she said lightly. What did he say? Not much, I said. He looked nervous, like a man who's just realized he's in a story he doesn't understand. She laughed. Too high, too sharp. You're being dramatic again. Maybe, I said. But I like drama, especially when I write it. Her fingers tightened around her wine glass. You're scaring me a little. I leaned back, calm, steady. Good. The days that followed were delicious. She spiraled, and I stayed silent. She started double-locking her phone, sneaking calls in the bathroom, texting furiously under the covers when she thought I was asleep. But here's the thing. When you're already in the cloud, no lock screen matters. Every word she typed, I saw. Every plan she made with Mason, I logged. One night, she hissed into the phone. He knows something. I can feel it. But he hasn't said anything. He just smiles. Mason replied, relax. He's not going to do anything. Her answer, you don't know him. He's not like other guys. He's calculating. I smiled in the dark, reading that line on the iPad. Calculating. Finally, she was catching on. By the end of the month, the oak box was full. Emails, receipts, photos, bank transfers, messages, GPS logs, even witness statements. Heavy enough that lifting it felt like lifting the weight off my chest. So I bought another. Bigger. Stronger. Steel hinges this time. And into that one, I started placing my revenge. Little steps. First, I closed our joint savings account. Quietly. Moved everything into a trust under my name. She didn't notice. She rarely checked balances. Only spent them. Second, I canceled her credit card. Let her find out at the boutique checkout line. Embarrassed, fumbling excuses. Third, I met with her brokerage's managing partner. Over lunch, I slid him a folder with her conference receipts. He said nothing, just nodded grimly. And finally, the masterpiece. I scheduled a weekend getaway for us at Ridge Hill. Same suite number she used with Mason. Same hotel staff. Same timeline. When she saw the reservation on the counter, her face went pale. "You booked this?" she asked, voice thin. "Of course," I said warmly. "We deserve some time away. Just us." She tried to smile. "That's thoughtful." "It is," I agreed. "Very thoughtful." That night, as she slept beside me, I whispered quietly into the dark. "You call me a placeholder. You call me dull. But placeholders don't set the table. They flip it." And soon, very soon, she was going to learn exactly how sharp, dull men can be. The weekend arrived like a storm she couldn't outrun. Vanessa packed her suitcase with deliberate care, each blouse folded like armor, each pair of heels stacked like artillery. I watched her from the doorway as she zipped the bag closed, her movements a little too brisk, a little too rehearsed. "You excited?" I asked lightly. She glanced up, forced a smile. "Of course. It'll be nice to spend some time together." "Just us." "Just us," I echoed, holding her gaze long enough to make her look away. The drive was quiet. She fiddled with her phone, fingers tapping out rapid messages I pretended not to notice. But I knew, thanks to the iPad still humming on our nightstand, that every word she typed to Mason was waiting for me. He booked Ridge Hill. Same hotel. What if he knows? Mason, in his usual wisdom, replied, "Relax. Play along. He's not as smart as you think." I smiled at the road ahead. Mason thought he'd figured out the script. But Mason was a side character, and side characters don't survive to the final act. We pulled into the Marriott lot just after dusk. The neon sign glowed above us, humming like it was in on the secret. Inside, the lobby buzzed with the low murmur of weekend travelers, families checking in, couples arguing about luggage. The desk clerk greeted us with polite cheer, handed me the key cards, and said, "Suite 417. Welcome back." I caught the flicker of panic cross Vanessa's face. "Back?" she repeated. The clerk smiled, oblivious. "Yes, ma'am. Same suite you stayed in last month." "Wonderful choice." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I slipped the key cards into my pocket, thanked the clerk, and guided her toward the elevator. Inside the suite, she busied herself unpacking, pretending she hadn't just been exposed by a stranger in a polyester vest. I walked to the window, pulled back the curtains, and let the city lights wash over me. "Nice room," I said softly. "Feels familiar." She froze, her hand gripping a hanger. Then she forced a laugh. "All hotels feel the same after a while, don't they?" "Not all," I said. "Some carry a scent. Lavender, maybe." Her shoulders tensed. She didn't answer. Dinner was a charade. She talked too much, laughed too loud, sipped her wine too fast. I let her play her part, nodding at the right moments, watching her performance unravel with every nervous glance toward the door. Halfway through the meal, her phone buzzed. She excused herself to the restroom, clutching it like a lifeline. I gave her 5 minutes, then followed. I didn't barge in. I didn't eavesdrop at the door. I simply opened the iPad from my briefcase, connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, and watched her messages populate in real time. "Mason, are you okay?" "Vanessa, he knows. I swear he knows. He keeps hinting." "Mason, he's bluffing. Just act normal." "Vanessa, I can't. I think he set this up. Same suite. Same everything. It's like he's..." Her typing stopped. The screen went blank. Then, "I'll call you later." I closed the iPad and returned to my seat. She reappeared a few minutes later, face flushed, smile plastered. "Sorry," she said too brightly. "Just Celeste from work." "Of course," I said, swirling my wine. "Always Celeste." Back in the suite, she slipped into her robe and perched on the edge of the bed. "This was nice," she said carefully. "We should do this more often." I sat at the desk, the oak box beside me, lid open. "We should," I agreed. "Trips like this are clarifying." She frowned. "Clarifying?" I lifted a folder from the box, flipped it open, and laid a stack of receipts on the desk. Hotel bills, duplicate charges, time-stamped with her client retreats. Her face drained. "Where did you get those?" I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up another folder, screenshots of her texts, Mason's shirtless selfies, every emoji-laden confession. I spread them like playing cards across the desk. She stood slowly, robe tightening around her. "You've been spying on me?" "No," I said calmly. "I've been documenting you." Her jaw tightened. "This is insane. You can't just—" "Can't I?" I asked softly. "You brought your lies into my house, my bed, my life. The least I can do is file them properly." Her eyes flashed. "So what now? You going to wave those around at my office? Send them to my clients? You'll ruin yourself too. You know, everyone will think you're pathetic." I smiled. "Oh, Vanessa, I'm not here to argue. I'm here to execute." Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. She stared at me like she was finally seeing the man behind the calm. And maybe, for the first time, she was afraid. The next morning, she was syrup sweet again. Coffee in bed, kisses on the cheek, chatter about sightseeing. I played along, let her think the storm had passed. But while she packed her suitcase, I slipped out, headed downstairs to the business center. I slid a USB drive into the computer and uploaded the entire contents of the oak box into an encrypted cloud folder. Then I drafted a series of emails, timed, scheduled, locked. One to her brokerage partner, one to our financial advisor, one to Mason's employer, and one to Vanessa herself, each set to send in sequence should I fail to log in and cancel them. Insurance. When I returned to the suite, she was zipping her bag closed. "Ready?" she asked. "Always," I said. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. She kept glancing at me, waiting for a crack, a slip, some hint of emotion. She got nothing. Just silence, steady and sharp. Halfway down the highway, she finally blurted, "Why aren't you yelling? Why aren't you furious?" I kept my eyes on the road. Because fury burns out. Silence calcifies. She didn't respond. That evening, back home, I placed the oak box on my desk and locked it. Then I poured myself a drink and sat in the living room, watching her bustle around the house like a trapped bird. She thought the worst was behind her. But the truth? The Ridge Hill trip was just rehearsal. The performance was still to come. And she wouldn't see the curtain drop until it was too late. The following week, Vanessa moved like a woman trying to plug holes in a sinking ship. She was suddenly the picture of domestic devotion. Dinners on the table, wine poured before I even asked, random hugs in the hallway as if affection could erase evidence. And I, ever the fool she thought I was, accepted every gesture with a patient smile. Because nothing terrifies a guilty person more than forgiveness they didn't earn. She spent hours locked in her office, whispering into her phone, panicked words slipping out. "He knows something. I don't know what he's planning." I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. Instead, I made small adjustments. Quiet ones. First, I changed the password on our joint brokerage account. She didn't notice until she tried to transfer funds for one of her marketing events. The alert on her phone sent her pacing through the house like a caged tiger. "Did you change something with the accounts?" she asked, voice sweet but eyes sharp. "Probably a security update," I said, sipping my coffee. "Banks do that." She nodded slowly, pretending to believe me. Next, I canceled her gym membership. She only discovered it when her key fob didn't work, and the front desk clerk politely told her the account was closed per Mr. Davenport's request. By the time she stormed through the front door that evening, I was in the living room reading. "You had no right," she snapped. I looked up, calm. "No right? To my accounts? My name? My money?" She froze. Just for a second. Then she forced a laugh. "You're being controlling again. This is exactly why. Why you needed Mason?" I asked softly. Her mouth snapped shut. I returned to my book. Dinner's in the fridge. That night, she didn't touch her food. It was Mason who cracked first. I knew he would. Men like him, built on bravado, drunk on attention, they crumble when the pressure shifts from fantasy to consequence. He showed up at my office one afternoon, looking pale, hands shoved deep in his pockets. My secretary buzzed me. "There's a man here to see you. Says it's urgent." I let him in. "Look, man," he began, words tumbling out. "I didn't mean for this to get so messy. She told me you guys were done. She said you didn't care." I leaned back in my chair, studying him like a specimen under glass. "And you believed her?" His throat bobbed. I didn't think it was my business." "Good instinct," I said evenly. "Because it isn't." He blinked. "So you're not going to ruin me." I smiled faintly. "Ruin you? Mason, I don't have to. You'll do that yourself. But don't worry. I've made sure Vanessa will be standing right next to you when it happens." Confusion flickered across his face, followed by dread. He shifted from foot to foot, then muttered, "I should go." "Yes," I said. "You should." He left. I watched him disappear down the hall, already imagining the look on Vanessa's face when she realized her night was made of cardboard. The day of the performance arrived quietly. No dramatic thunderstorm, no ominous music, just a Tuesday morning, crisp and ordinary. I scheduled a lunch with Vanessa at her favorite cafe. She arrived in her beige blazer, smile polished, eyes scanning me for hints of danger. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, leaning in for a kiss I didn't return. "Of course," I said calmly. Halfway through the meal, as she chattered about real estate trends, my phone buzzed. Right on time. The first email had been sent. Her brokerage partner. Screenshots of her messages with Mason. Receipts showing conference weekends that lined up with personal time off. A polite note at the bottom. "I believe you should be aware of this pattern." Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, face tightening, then quickly flipped it face down. "You okay?" I asked mildly. "Fine," she said, voice thin. Minutes later, her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't pick it up. That was the financial advisor. Email number 2. Bank transfer sheet hidden, the Range Rover payments, the boutique charges under business expenses. And then, as dessert arrived, her phone rang outright. Mason's number. She froze. I sipped my coffee. "Aren't you going to answer?" I asked. She fumbled, silenced the call, shoved the phone back into her purse. By the time we left the cafe, her hands were trembling, and she still had no idea the third email had gone out. To Mason's employer, the real finale wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't even cruel in the way she might have imagined. It was quiet, surgical. That evening, I came home, placed the oak box on the kitchen table, and opened it in front of her. One by one, I slid the folders across the surface. "Your clients know. Your partner knows. Mason's boss knows. And by morning, the bar committee will know too. Fraudulent expenses don't play well in this industry." She stared at the papers, face pale, lips parted. You destroyed me." I leaned back, calm. "No, Vanessa. You destroyed yourself. I just handed out the invitations." Her voice cracked. "You can't do this. I'll lose everything." I studied her. The woman who once called me dull. A placeholder. A man too boring to notice betrayal. "You won't lose everything," I said softly. "You still have Mason." As if on cue, her phone buzzed. She snatched it up, eyes scanning the message. Then her face collapsed. "Vanessa," she read aloud, voice trembling. "This is too much. I can't do this anymore. Please don't contact me again." Silence. Just the tick of the clock on the wall. I stood, collected the oak box, and walked to the door. She called after me, desperate now. "What are you going to do?" I paused, hand on the knob. "Nothing," I said. "Absolutely nothing. That's the worst punishment you'll ever get." And then I left. She wanted drama. I gave her silence. She wanted chaos. I gave her order. She wanted me broken. Instead, I left her standing in the ruins she built, clutching a phone that would never buzz again. That was my revenge. Unexpected, quiet, complete. And the best part? She never saw it coming.